Hello and welcome to Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
Well, sisters, very exciting news recently.
What's that?
By the time the show comes out, it's not very recent.
No, it's like 3
I'm
weeks.
realizing that. This is the danger of recording early. So I watched Doctor Who now.
I
Riley,
watched Doctor Who.
I know you watched Doctor Who. Taylor, have you ever watched Doctor Who?
I have watched the Christmas episodes for the past 2 years because you guys always make me watch them when I'm home.
That's true.
So basically, we're all giant Doctor Who fans, is what you can glean from that.
Precisely.
And you probably are aware, if you have any interaction with the internet, that the next Doctor is going to be a woman for the first time.
What?
That's right.
Aliens can't be women.
Time travelers can't be women.
It is impossible for a female to time travel.
I actually saw that on
Doctors,
Twitter.
what's next?
I actually saw that exact comment that women can't. Everybody knows women can't time travel.
Their menstrual cycles get in the way of the time travel mechanism.
My favorite
It's very complicated.
My favorite was one of the tweets that said one of her first adventures will be correcting everyone that calls her Nurse Who instead of Doctor Who.
Oh, Nurse Who.
So, Jodie Whittaker is her name, a
Yes.
fine actress who will be the 13th Doctor. I am thrilled.
As am I.
It's about time, I think. The Doctor, of course, is an alien who dies and regenerates into a
new
different
person.
form every time, and conceivably any form. So, why not a woman?
Well, and I'm going to try to right my wrong here by not. I hold off on getting into fandoms until I have a portion of time to give to it, because I'm one of those people that goes all in. Like, like when I started watching Game of Thrones, I lost a week of my life because that's what I did. When I watched Twin Peaks, same thing. So but to counteract all the angry people that are saying, "Well, not watch," I'm going to watch. So
We'll watch.
You've gained one person. I'm gonna do my lady parts having duty and start watching Doctor Who.
It's a great show anyway, and that's the thing. Like, I have not, as a woman, I did not watch all of the past seasons of Doctor Who that I have thoroughly enjoyed and thought, I am so angry. I am so furious that this doctor is a man. Like, no, I just love the show and I love the character, and
It's also a good.
It's great,
the
so-
show is really inclusive with a lot of different types of people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like all about a dude. I mean, the most
No.
recent companion was a female who happened to be lesbian.
So, I mean, I think that the show has, I mean, there's no mistaking that, like, it has become more diverse since its more early year, like the early years of Doctor Who, like the older Doctor Who.
That I will admit
But-
I have not watched.
And I've seen some, not a lot, but I just think it's unfathomable to me that I would ever watch it and think I'm instantly fixated on the idea that this main character is male, and so I can't stand the show. And so why are there people who are so fixated on the idea that the main character will be female, and so clearly they can no longer watch the show? I hope some of these people have never watched Doctor Who and
Yeah.
are like, I've never watched this, but I'm definitely
mad it's
not
a
watching
female.
We're not
now.
watching it now. But, you know, I've always, like, I don't know. I think that a lot of the heroes that I looked up to, a lot of, like, the characters that I loved, gender never mattered to me. Like, growing up, I loved Spider-Man. I wanted to be Spider-Man. It wasn't like, but I can't be. He's a boy. It was like, I should be Gwen Stacy, or, you know, like, I love Spider-Man. But there was so I don't know. I agree with you. But that being said, when I saw Wonder Woman in the theaters, and there was like all those articles about women bursting into tears when she was fighting, I was one of those women. Like, I didn't know what it felt like to have a woman do that on the big screen until it happened. I'm like, wait, is this what dudes have been feeling all this time? No wonder they're mad. It's awesome.
It really is true. I mean, I think a lot of young women as they grow up just do that. Like, one of my role models for my life has always been Hawkeye Pierce. from MASH. And I love Hawkeye Pierce, and I always will, and I love Alan Alda for it, and I think he's an amazing character. And I didn't watch the show and think like, oh, I'm so dreamy, I have such a crush on Hawkeye. No, I wanted to be Hawkeye. That was a role model for me. But it is very meaningful. Like when I look at my daughter, when I look at Charlie, and I think as a toddler, she is kind of in that phase where she very strongly like is aware all of a sudden, like she will tell you that she is a girl, and she looks for characters who are like her to identify with.
She does.
I mean, she very much does. And so I am very now as a parent, I am highly acutely aware of characters that she will connect with that I also would want her to. And the more examples that there are of different kinds of, for her, girls, but also women that she can connect to, I think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And so it does matter. And women can travel through time as much as, you know what, as much as men can right now.
Well, that's
Really?
like
Which is like, nobody's traveling through time, guys. It's fake. It's sci-fi. Come on.
but like yeah, I mean, like as like a lifelong nerd, like I've done a lot of cosplay. Like I've done like Spengler from Ghostbusters and like Han Solo, and that's great. But to have that thought, like, wait, there's some kid growing up right now, some person that's gonna grow up being able to be a female Jedi, and it's not like a gender bent. It's just that's just the character, because those are there. There are female Ghostbusters in this world. Actual Ghostbusters don't exist, but we fight over it anyway. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's you know, the thing is, like, guys, you still have lots. It's okay. You've still got so much.
The Doctor
it's
keeps
really
changing
okay.
faces anyways. It's not about what the Doctor looks like. It's about the Doctor's character.
Exactly. And the Doctor's gender.
If I was going to be mad
cannot
about
imagine
something, I'd be mad about the fact that Matt Smith left the show, because he's my favorite.
Well, and I've been completely satisfied looking up to lots and lots of male heroes for a long time. It's never bothered me. Maybe, you know, like, chill with some female heroes. They can be awesome too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. This is not just important for, like, when I think about Charlie, for our daughters, but for young boys and men to, you know, understand, if maybe they don't, that it's okay to look up to women. It's okay to see it's okay to see a female character with whom you identify, and one that you admire, and one that you would want to be like. That's totally fine. Yeah. That's good. Embrace that. Live that truth. It's good.
Spoiler
Live that
alert,
truth.
Women are people too.
What?
Surprise.
Wow.
Now work that transition, because we got off on a whole tangent.
Riley, you better get all your Doctor Who watching in now, because you know it's just around the corner for you next year. College.
I'm not gonna have time to watch Doctor Who when I'm in college.
You're gonna be so busy.
No.
I'm still gonna watch Doctor Who.
You're
When
gonna be
I'm in
studying
college.
nonstop. You're
I
not
know.
gonna have any time for television.
It's false.
That's college. That's what
Nope.
it's like. Not really, but are you getting ready for college?
Yeah, I actually am. I applied to a college for the first time ever, like a week ago.
Did you get in?
I don't know.
Kidding. Like, it doesn't happen yet. But that's good. The first step is applying.
Yeah.
So how have you found the process, the application process for college?
Terrifying. Also, I always feel like I'm doing something wrong because I did the online application thing, and I didn't have to give them like anything about my grades in school, about my test scores on anything. I just like gave them my name and my address and paid them $30. I was like, okay, here.
Are you sure this was a college?
Yeah, it was the college you went to, Sydney.
I think you got scammed.
Riley's just gonna get a T-shirt that says college.
If anybody wants an easy $30, just come up to Riley and say, "Hey, I'm a college."
Apply to me.
Okay.
It was the
$30,
college you went
Tell me
to.
your name.
I'm joking. I know. There's so much that goes into not just applying, but like, so you've applied to one college. Are you gonna
Yes.
apply to more?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a college I want to go to, which is the one I've already applied for, and I already applied just because there's a scholarship I won at this college, and you have to actually get into the college before you can apply for the scholarship, which makes sense. I mean, they're not going to give someone a scholarship that actually didn't even get into the college. But, you know, there are just a few other, you know, to see what happens.
How did you go about picking the schools that you would apply to?
Well, scholarships honestly are a big part of it just because college keeps getting more expensive and I don't want to have to take out loans and be in debt, and I think that there are scholarships that make it so you can travel and pay for your college and have a good experience and get your degree, but also not have to worry about, like, you know, money.
That's a
Which
good
is
reason.
nice. Yeah.
There's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you were like, I like their school colors. That's
No.
probably not a great reason to.
But I mean, that's the reason I applied to the school I applied to already, just because the scholarship that you got, Sydney,
Yeah.
is one that I am applying for, and it pays for you to travel abroad and pays for your room and board and your tuition and your food and a laptop and books and literally everything.
Yeah. And gives you some spending money too.
Yeah, like you
it's a
get paid
good-
to go to
it's a good
college.
program.
So
It is hard when teens are in the driver's seat of picking their futures, because I know some of the colleges that I was choosing between. I did a pre-college program at one, and even though it didn't have the things that I wanted as far as education goes, they had really, really good, like, Lucky Charms, Rice Krispie treats always in the commissary, and that was absolutely thing that was weighing in my brain, trying to decide, like, God, I know this college is so much better for me. It's a better opportunity, it's better teachers, but that one college
With the Lucky
Charms,
Charms.
Rice Krispie treats.
I want one of those.
They were so good. And it was so, like, obvious they had, like, a cereal bar. And then clearly they would take this stale cereal and make them into cereal, like, Rice Krispie treats. It was always an option. So you knew you were getting, like, recycled old cereal. It didn't matter. They were delicious. I'm glad I didn't base my future on those. But I was, like, super close to doing that.
Super close to it.
Super close to basing my future on Rice Krispie treats.
See, I think I was very similar to what you're saying, Riley, in that I looked that at our local university we had that, you know, a very good scholarship program that not only would pay for everything, which was a big deal,
Yeah.
Especially since I already had the advantage of kind of knowing I was going to go to med school, or hoping that I would be able to get into med school, and knowing that I was going to rack up, like,
Debt for that.
yeah, 6-figure debt for medical school
Yeah.
alone. So anything I could do to lessen the cost of undergrad, I was in for. And they also, you know, provided, that scholarship program provides all these extra classes that you take that are like these intensive seminars with a very small number of students, and they're team taught by like 5 professors. So all these educational opportunities. So for me, I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. I applied for that school thinking, I'll get that scholarship. That seems like a good plan. And I applied for that. And then once I got to the semifinals of it, I went, yeah, this will work. And I didn't finish applications for any of the other schools that I had started applications for.
That's crazy.
Yes, it was stupid and it was reckless.
I
And
was going to say, that terrifies me.
I'm very lucky that it worked out. And I don't, like, when I look back, I think, was I naive or was I that arrogant? I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe both.
Well, Sid, I was in the same boat. I only applied to 2 colleges.
Well, maybe you were you naive or arrogant?
I think he was super arrogant. I applied to 2 very like small art schools that were very expensive, and I don't know. I'll be in debt forever, but I got into both of them.
But see, you made good choices.
Well, no, there's the debt forever thing. See, Riley, in the past, there used to be these companies that would give people money that they knew could never pay them back. And I was one of those people.
That's very true. The only thing I tell med students this, and this is terrible advice, but, you know, your student loans die with you, so.
You know who taught me that? Dad.
I really think that way. Like, because I didn't ever really consider the impact of that till I got married, and then I had a kid, and I was like, well, I would hate if something happened to me, and I would be like, I bequeath to you, daughter, all of my medical
All of my
school
med
debt.
school debt.
Figure out what to do with it. Good luck with the rest of your life. And then when I learned, like, no, it goes away if you die, I was like, oh, you know, I can pay on it. It's fine.
That actually makes me feel better. Like,
Well,
I don't
I mean,
what like person I was like, hey, so I want to make comic books, and it's like, cool, here's $100,000. No, why did you listen to me? I was 18. Don't listen to me.
this was all before, like, the housing market crash and
Yeah, I know,
everything. And
like,
we
I got
went,
in.
what are we doing?
This is all in the past, Riley. You'll never get the opportunity that I should never have gotten.
That's,
But,
that's probably for
I
the
mean,
best.
You all talk about you only applied to 2 schools and you applied to literally one
I
for one
started-
scholarship program.
I started applications for others, and then I just never finished them.
Well, for me, it was that I was like highly, highly, highly qualified academic applying to art schools, and these art schools were like, "What? you did calculus? Oh my gosh, come to us!
But,
We don't
I
even
mean,
have math classes, but come here."
They had you come teach a math class.
Basically, like literally, the college I went to didn't have math. There was no math.
So look at that, Riley.
So
there are
look at
colleges
that college.
with no math.
You do good enough math in high school, you get to go to colleges that don't have any.
I know that's a big. It's really interesting because Tay, you and I took very different college paths.
Yes.
In the sense that I knew pretty early on, like a liberal arts school is where I wanted to head so that I could focus on science and medicine stuff. But I also really I got excited about the idea of like, I'm going to take some history classes. I'm going to take some like psychology classes. I'm going to take some philosophy classes. I'm going to take a bunch of different other classes in other colleges. I took like creative writing classes, and that way I can try all this other stuff out because I've got the time and the flexibility to, and if I got that scholarship, I was assuming that I was going to get, it'll be paid for, and it's going to be so much fun to try out all this other stuff that'll have nothing to do with the rest of my career, was the way I kind of looked at school. And you went a very different direction, which is, I know what I want to do. I want to go to a school that can make sure it prepares me to do that. That's
Right.
like kind of a whole other look at college. I think that's an interesting difference.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wish that it was, because I think that notion of like, I definitely want to do this one thing, it should be a thing that I can get highly qualified in. That's a great idea if you're passionate about the one thing. I wish it didn't almost always come with like a really high price tag, but I think I mean, I went to an amazing college and had an amazing experience. And I've never questioned the thing that I chose to do, but yeah, that's kind of the give and take of it, is that specificity sometimes comes with a price tag.
Did you know how risky that was? Do you think because I mean, the advantage of like the direction I went was that, let's say I got there and went, oh, forget this. I hate biology. I hate science now. I changed my mind. I don't want to do anything in medicine. I could have shifted gears and done something else. Did you going in know like, man, what if I get in here and go, I really do want to do math. I don't want to be in art anymore. Like, did you ever think about that?
No, and I don't know. Maybe certain fields get a bit more of like, oh, this is a field you can be passionate about, whereas this is just a thing. And I think that's kind of unfair, because to say I went into art because I was always passionate about it, that oftentimes gets that label of like, well, you must be passionate if you're going to do this thing that makes no money. like you can be passionate about anything. You can be passionate about, being somebody's like, I don't know, accountant. Like, that's great. But I never questioned it, but I get what you're saying. Like, there was definitely there were only so many. I could not have switched out my major once I decided that was what I was doing. I could have maybe gone to like soft sculpture.
I mean, there's also that fear that I know people that I go to school with are wanting to go to musical theater programs. And if you apply to them like an art program at a school, or a school that maybe isn't just for, because I know you went to a school that's just for art, but maybe a school that has like a musical theater program, but you don't get into any of the programs you apply to, then it's like, what do you do? I mean, you could get into the school and you could go to a school somewhere, but I mean,
especially if you chose that school for those programs.
Right.
If you don't get into them,
and if you don't
Yeah.
apply to any schools that don't have programs, even if you wanted to go to them otherwise, then what do you do? I mean, that's scary. I mean, I'm lucky enough. We talked about what we wanted to do. I'm lucky enough that I am one of those things that you were talking about. You can go to a college where I will go to one. I'm not going to go to a specific college or program. So if I really end up wanting to change my mind, I will have that freedom to. But the idea of having to decide what you want right when you graduate, and when you get there not being able to change, like, that just requires so much confidence in what you want to do. And that's, I mean, crazy and terrifying.
There are some careers where passion will get you a lot farther than others. And here's the difference, I think, between you and me, Sid. It's that you're a doctor. You need to know things. Doesn't matter how passionate you are about being a doctor. You can't say, like, the 50th time I cut into somebody, I'll get it right. Like, that's not an option. Whereas, you know, for, like, early on, like, for anybody that told me, like, maybe you don't have what it takes, I mean, like, you know, you still have a long way to go. There was always that drive got me a lot farther by being passionate. And same thing with any sort of, like, you know, artistic writing, musical theater, those kind of career paths, like, the longer you work at them, the better you get. And so your passion is actually a propulsion to get you to where you want to go. Whereas
I do think it would be fascinating to have somebody who's like, you know what? I don't know anything about medicine. I never studied it, but I'm so passionate about it.
I just want to do it.
I just want to do it. I just need to live it. I really feel like if you just let me try a surgery on you, I don't know how to do it, but I feel so passionately. I think I can do it.
Well, that's like one of the lessons that I embraced in art school was one of my teachers that was like, look, you've got who knows how many bad drawings you have inside of you, but you've got to get them all out before you get to the good drawings, and you will get there. Some people have 100, some people have 10,000, and that was a philosophy that I embraced.
All the bad surgeries out before you get a good one.
Option. Like, I want you to, the one surgery you do on me needs to be a freaking, like, you know, Van Gogh masterpiece, please.
Listen, what if that would be terrible. I start my first day as a doctor. I start out my first day of office and I'm like, listen, you're my first patient, so this is going to be a bad diagnosis. This treatment plan is going to be.
I'm not going to give you the right medicine.
Super bad. It's going to be rough, but in a few years, I'm going to be way better at this. So if
Come
you're
back.
still alive, stick with me. Yeah, they don't let us do that.
Well, that being said, I also kind of hate that philosophy directed at the arts, because I'm like, well, no, like, you should be, you do it well, do it good, do good. Like,
Do good.
Sure,
push
and
yourself.
there are always people in the, you know, when you get into the world of the arts and all encompassing, not just like visual arts, but all the arts, who frustratingly seem to be capable of brilliance from like day one, you know. So
yeah,
that I don't think that it's, you're right. It's not always necessarily the same. It doesn't translate directly.
right.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, I was thinking about, what if I did that? What if I just like put all my eggs in one basket and just like went for the scholarship? The same thing as Sydney. Probably makes me naive and arrogant. It's fine.
especially now that we've told you.
Yeah.
This is just a family trait. We all just go like,
Yeah.
what? That's my college. I picked it. They picked
I
me.
want it, so it's fine. There's so much pressure on us at school to pick safety schools and spread out our options and not get our hopes too high for any one college or any one scholarship, just because I think that, I don't know if our school just, I mean, my counselor told me, like, you should apply to like several other colleges because you might not get this. I was like, well, I don't want to go anywhere else. I mean, there are a few other colleges I could apply to that's like, if I get in, that's super cool, but there's nowhere else I have an interest in going like this. So help me do better at getting this.
And not only that, I think if what you came in and said was, I'm only applying to Harvard, okay? Here it is.
That's exactly what I said. How did you know?
I think it would be good advice to say, this is a very competitive school. You have great grades. Everybody applying is going to have great grades.
grades.
You know, like, there's more to it, and sometimes you could seem like the most qualified person in the world and it doesn't work out. I think that having that dose of realism is good, but you're also applying to the same school I went to, which I know is not a particularly competitive school to get into.
No, I mean, like,
So
I
that
know
seems like odd
100%
advice.
I'll get into the school,
Yeah.
but I don't know about the scholarship.
The scholarship is very competitive, and I like I said, in retrospect, I don't know why I thought I was a shoo-in. I wasn't. I'm glad I got it. Obviously, I was
Right.
I was qualified for it, but I was not a shoo-in in retrospect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's weird to me because I feel like I see college differently than maybe a lot of people I go to school with do. I see it as I know what I want to do, I think, right now. So I'm going to go in with that idea. And if I'm going to go somewhere for 4 years and just kind of figure it out before I actually have to be on my own and like be an adult and have a job, I should do it somewhere where I'm comfortable and somewhere where like I want to be. So if I can do that without having to pay any money for it, that would be great. But if I can't, that's fine. But once I figure out how to be an adult and once I figure out how to do the job that I want to do after 4 years of learning about it and growing up and learning how to be on my own, then I can move somewhere. Then I can go apply for some crazy job somewhere else and move out of home. But I don't know if that's just me being like scared. I don't know if that's me being like I don't want to think about moving, but I know there are a lot of people that I go to school with now who want to do something that requires them living somewhere else, and they're just immediately, even if they're going to college first, because before they want to do that job, they're immediately moving where they have to be. Kind of like what Taylor did. I mean, she moved out because that's where she wanted to be and that's where she could get the degree. And I think it's just, I don't know if that's just a different mindset for me or if that's like a shift.
I definitely, like, my goal in going to college in New York was, like, I can say this honestly now, it was 50% about the degree and 50% about New York. It was,
Right.
you know, just to be in the city I wanted to be in. But I'd say for as much as I learned in college, my 4 years living on my own in a place where I didn't have family, where I didn't have friends, like, that part of the education, which had nothing to do with my college, was infinitely more important than anything I learned in class. So I don't know. I mean, and once again, you're like, this is one of those topics where Sydney and I are like complete opposites. Like, and that being said, Sydney is more like traditionally successful than I am. So like,
I don't think you can use those metrics. I mean, it really just depends on like, do you enjoy what you do and are you happy?
well, no, absolutely. But you know, I think this is a good thing for us to be your examples for, because we couldn't be more different. Sydney got a great scholarship, stayed in state, you know, like stayed on her career path. I went out of state, racked up a ton of debt, lived on my own, and am a bar manager, and I went to school for, you know, illustration. So, you know, we're both happy people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with either path, but it is important, I think, to figure out which one suits you more. For me, I had lots of people who I graduated with who were like, you got to get out of here. You know, you got to, wherever you go, out of even not even out of state, because, you know, there's another college that we don't talk about.
We don't talk about
Up north in West Virginia that we don't reference. Not here in Huntington, where Marshall is.
where our blood runs green.
That's right. But
not blue and gold.
exactly. But but you know, I had a lot of friends who were like, it doesn't matter, go there just so you don't stay in Huntington anymore. And I never had that drive. It was like, well, yeah, you know, if I can get a good scholarship somewhere else, I mean, I was open to the idea when I applied to med schools. Like, I applied to a few different med schools, but then again, like, financials kept coming into it for me. It's so much cheaper to stay in state for med school, especially this med school is, you know, not quite as expensive as some other ones. So it started to seem silly. And then I got a little bit of scholarship money, not like college scholarship.
Right.
You don't get that at med school usually. But so it just kind of all made sense to stay. But I also didn't mind it. I mean, I got to travel as part of my college experience. I saw a lot of different places, not just in the country, but around the world as a result of the things I did. And so I was okay with that. And I didn't mind having proximity to my family. Like that didn't bother me so much to have like mom checking in on me and wanting to know like, do you want to come to dinner this weekend? And I mean, I didn't mind it because I took advantage and said, sure, I don't want to eat another can of chicken with steak seasoning in it. So I will come home and let you do all my laundry and cook for me. And none of that bothered me in particular, but I really think it's about knowing what you need, what you want, and how you can achieve the independence that you need in life. Because as much as staying in town didn't bother me, I moved onto campus, and that was very important to me to have my own living situation.
I was going to say, I will say, even if I do stay here for college and I get into the college that's like 10 minutes away, it's important for me to move onto campus just because I feel like it feels no different than high school if you're still, for me at least, if I'm still living at home. It feels like I'm still in high school.
Well, I think that's kind of a, it's a common thing. Like, oh, you got to get out of whatever small town you grew up in. Like, that was very much an impetus for me when I was your age, Riley. And it was a very immature one. Because ultimately that was like a fear I had. Like, oh, I have to get out. Like, that's the only way that like I can be something or be me. And that didn't have anything in line with me being who I wanted to be or pursuing the things I wanted to do. It was just a thing. Oh, I can't stay here. And it really wasn't until like after I graduated college, and I had my degree, I had all my skills, but I didn't want to do the thing that I was trained to do at that time. I wanted to travel and I wanted to save some money. So I actually moved back home and like got a job waiting tables. And it was a very specific like night that I had to wait on a bunch of like cool girls that I went to high school with, that like my big thing was like, look, I got out of town, I went to New York, now I'm back here and I'm your server, and this should be the most humiliating, terrible moment of my life, and it's actually not a big deal because I'm pursuing something I want to do. So that is like, I remember what it was like to feel that, like, you gotta get out of your small town. It's like, it's yes or no. What do you actually want to do, and how can you best serve that? Because where you are doing that will never matter. You know?
You know, what's crazy is you say that you feel like that was immature that you thought that, but I have had teachers in my high school, like not like one or two people telling me this, but teachers tell us several times, you should find a career that takes you out of Huntington. And you should leave this place if you can, and you should go somewhere bigger. And it's like, if that's what you want to do, cool. But part of me has also always wanted to stay here for college and also wanted to like live here. And that's fine too.
The key is knowing that you can do it either way is okay. The key is because there is going to be a degree of fear. And like, and I mean, I don't think I would be lying if I told you that I stayed here because I 100% wanted to, and I was not afraid at all to leave. I just wanted to stay. No, of course, part of it was also a fear of the unknown. Yeah. We're supposed to have that. That's biological. It makes us cautious, and we enter strange environments with a degree of, situational awareness. It's important to us as an animal. But that fear was also there, and you never want to let that fear hold you back. You never want the fear of, I don't know what it'll be like. I won't know anybody. It'll be different. It'll be new. You never want to let that stop you. But as long as you acknowledge that fear, you know it's there, and you go, I know I have that fear, but that's not the ultimate reason I'm choosing this. I'm choosing it because I want this. Then you should choose what's best for you.
I mean, there are some careers that you wouldn't be able to do living here. I mean, there are people I go to school with who want to be on Broadway and want to do musical theater, and it's like, well, you're not going to do that living here. There aren't even any musical theater programs in our area that are like specifically designed for musical theater and aren't just a degree you can get at a regular college.
And Taylor, you couldn't have gotten your degree you have in art here.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have nearly the opportunities to do your art that you have where you live.
Right.
Right.
And I think that if you think that any job can be done from where you are, so you never have to leave, that's silly. But it's also silly to think that anything you want to do has to take you out of where you are. Because, I mean, I think what I want to do I could do living here, but I could also move to a bigger city and do it from there. I could move probably anywhere and do it because it's online, and most of those jobs you can do like from home and from wherever you are and take them with you and travel with them. And I mean, the feeling I have going into it is if I go to college here and I end up wanting to stay here, cool. If I go to college here and end up wanting to see what it's like to live somewhere else for a little bit and I find a job and I'm happy, then that's cool too. But like, I'm not gonna go into college with the mindset that whatever I do has to take me out of where I am, because that just seems silly.
No, I don't want to sell short that Sydney and I have both traveled. That's incredibly important. I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, out of your state, out of your country. I think that experiencing the way that other people live, other cultures, other places, that is, I think, a thing we don't put enough emphasis on and we don't make available enough in our country. Like, I think that
Right.
is really important.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's a big difference between committing to living in another place for, 4 to 8 years versus like opening yourself up. Like, don't let fear hold you back from experiencing new things, but definitely don't like the insecurity that I felt that made me say like, well, I can never go back because I will be failing in some way. That's, now that I'm an adult, I feel ashamed of that, how disrespectful I was to where I grew up, because it was just like, that was a really immature kind of emo view of like, I come from a small town, but I'm gonna make it big. It's just kind of sad now.
I wouldn't beat yourself up though, because I think it's so pervasive and
Yeah.
I think it is eternal. I think it existed when you and I were teenagers. I think it exists now. I don't think that kind of thought, like the grass is always greener, I got to get out of the place where I came from. I think that's always going to be a theme.
Right.
I am disappointed to hear people who work and live in our community
Telling
urging
us that.
young people to leave, just like indiscriminately, like whatever you want to do, get out.
Just
Like,
get out.
I don't feel that we're America's best community. I don't
There
feel
you
that
go.
way.
And the thing is, it's like I don't know, like as somebody in New York City, it's like there's so many wonderful creative people here. There are maybe too many. Like I feel like there are a lot of new city centers. Like I was just talking to somebody about Richmond, Virginia, and how like they have this great like punk scene. They've got this great music scene. They've got this great food scene. And I have a lot of buddies that I used to live with that have moved there. They're like, yeah, screw that. I'm going to move to Richmond because it's cheaper and I can open the restaurant I want to open or whatever, do the art I want to do. Like, I think that there's maybe a bit more, like, hopefully moving forward where it's like, any community can be an amazing community. Stay there and enrich it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
If your job can be there, do it. Because I think too many people feel like they have to be in these big cities when maybe their goals would actually benefit the community they grew up in.
And I know we appreciate people who've like stayed in our community and added like amazing restaurants and stores and things and art and all kinds of businesses to this
Recently,
area.
our area has really become more diverse and has a lot more going on than it did 10 years ago.
And those are people largely who stayed here or
Right.
who left, got educated, and came back here.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily people who are new to the community. I mean,
Yeah.
that too, but I think there's something to be said for that. Now, I know college, the application process, everybody knows like the details. Like you got to have grades of some sort.
Test scores.
You got to have your test scores. You've got to do your community service.
Mhm.
Have you done it all now?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I mean, like, I am in the that's not just like me saying, like, I'm working on it. Like, I am in the process of doing it right now.
So you got to do your community service because they're going to ask you about, you got to check all those boxes that you did all those things and have extracurriculars.
I
You
have those.
Okay. You got a podcast.
I have a
You
podcast.
more than a podcast.
Does this
I
count as
theater.
community service?
I'm putting this into the community.
That's very, I don't know about that. That might be arrogant.
I don't think
I do
we're
a
doing
podcast. So those things are eternal. Now, I do wonder, do you have to do like some sort of essay questions, personal statement?
I know a few colleges because, man, let me tell you all, when you take a standardized test, if you put your email on there, you get so many emails from colleges that I'm just like, I've never even heard of this college. I have no interest
Yeah.
in going here. But I will say sometimes there are ones like, oh, this seems like a good school. And I'll look through the emails. And there are a few of those that are bigger schools that require short answer essays and long essays. But I looked at the questions and they're all like super easy to write about stuff. I mean, it's all like your personal opinions and what you think and about you. And it's never anything that like there's a right and wrong answer. It's just like,
But you got to
I
be
don't know.
memorable, though, is the key.
yeah. But
That's the trick.
for
is
someone
that,
who enjoys writing, I feel like like those are just
they're
like
easy.
fun to yeah, like they're easy and fun to do.
You know, I would love to pick the brain of a college admissions like person, because I can only relate this to like job interviews, like as somebody that's written a lot of resumes and put a lot of thought and worry into it, and then now as somebody that looks at resumes and goes like, okay, you have an address and a name, come in and meet with me. Like, like what is the job of somebody that reads all of those and like pours into them? Like, how is that quantified?
It's hard. I the closest I can come to like talking about that is I was on like a med school admissions committee for a while, and I now, you know, as part of a residency program, we accept residents every year, although the match is a lot more complicated than just like hiring people. But I kind of the admissions process, and you know, part of it is just making sure you meet like the basic requirements. Are the grades basically what we need them to be, or the scores basically what, you know, they pass all the right tests and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot to get an interview is just meeting those basic metrics, but then there's something past that. There's always in medicine, there's always like a lot of why you're here. Why do you see yourself as a doctor? What does that look like to you? What's that? And I mean, I think a lot of that kind of like understanding who you are and why you want the things you want, if you can verbalize that well, if you can put that into words fluently and eloquently, that's very powerful. No matter what you go into, we look for that a lot in medicine, but anything can be that way. And then again, I know it sounds cheesy, but putting in there something that will make you stick out, like
A
and I mean,
podcast.
well, a podcast is a good example. I will tell you that the thing I was asked most about, honestly, was my theater experience. On every level, I got questioned about like doing community theater, and like I saw you mentioned something about being in The Wizard of Oz. Who were you in The Wizard of Oz? You know, like that's what people remembered about me. And I mean, I was applying to be a doctor, and I ended up talking about community theater. But just because it was different, it wasn't what they were seeing on every other application. And I took the time to talk about it as part of why I thought I was the person I was. That kind of stuff is really important. I know that sounds silly. It sounds trite. But like whatever that extra thing is, they'll remember you more.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of an overarching thing in college interviews. Like I remember that going to art school, like the fact that I had heavy academics, like that's generally what I was spoken to about, was like, like I think that, you know, a well-rounded student, which is kind of funny because you'd think somebody that's super passionate about what they are doing, like that's who you'd want. But it's
Right.
like, no, can you tap dance? Like, oh, yeah, okay.
No, that really is, because I remember thinking like, I just want to be a doctor. Why am I talking about, why am I having this whole conversation about theater?
I mean, really, there used to be, for me, when I was like just going into high school, there was all this pressure like to get the perfect grades if you want the scholarship you want, or you want to get into the college you want. Get the perfect grades, have the highest GPA, be like top of your class, take all the hardest classes, and that's how you get into the college you want. But there's so much more than that. I mean, I have good grades. I have a high GPA. I am in the top whatever percentile of my class. I have good test scores, but I've been doing all that while I've been working on having extracurriculars and having things that make me stand out and being knowledgeable about things I'm not tested on in school, like current events and politics, and being able to have educated conversations with adults, because all of those are things that matter when you get to college, not just how good your grades are.
They really do. And depending on what, I mean, for generally to get into the university you're applying to, you don't have to do an interview. But to get the scholarship that you're applying for, you go through
Several
interviews, one of which, if it's still the same as it was when I went through it, is you and like 6 people in a room and they just keep asking you questions until, I don't know, you cry or
Yeah, I was gonna say until
they
I
get
break
tired.
down.
I mean, really, that's what it felt like to me. It was like they're just going to keep firing questions at me until I fall apart and can't answer them anymore. And it's very intimidating. And it has, I mean, they'll ask you some stuff about what you wrote essays about and stuff, but they really want to know what you know about the world. They were really, I had to be well versed on all the current political issues and social issues, and I had to have opinions on them and be able to back them up. And they wanted to know what my opinions were. And then they challenged me personally. I remember we got into this big debate about feminism. And at one point, one of the interviewers interrupted me and said, well, if you're such a feminist, why are you wearing a skirt to this interview?
Whoa!
And I remember just sitting there thinking, I can't believe I was just asked this question. And having to navigate that, like, first of all, that's wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Secondly, I have to handle it. I have to answer it. I can't just say, that's inappropriate. Like, I have to say something.
Yeah.
And I remember being able to not just argue back why, like, first of all, that has nothing to do with feminism.
Yeah.
And, you know, secondly, because there are people of an outdated, antiquated mindset who would ask questions like that and who would expect me to come in here in a skirt, suit, out, whatever that is. I don't know. It was a jacket and a skirt.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Are
call
you
it.
sure that wasn't just like a test? Like if you just thrown your water in his face, you would have gotten like $10,000 extra on your scholarship or something? Like, how you passed?
I think, I don't know, because I remember getting very angry and then leaving that interview thinking I blew it, because I have a bad temper and I show my anger pretty
Yeah.
easily. And I,
you do.
yeah.
Oh,
and it was shown. It was revealed. My anger was clear. I didn't curse or call names. But I mean, maybe they were looking for my response to pressure, like how I would handle. I don't know. But I remember
terrible.
thinking like, this is a very challenging process.
Hello, 17, 18-year-old woman. Deal with this crazy curveball.
Yeah. I'm about to throw an incredibly inappropriate sexist question at you in the middle of an interview and see how you handle it.
Jeez.
But yeah, it's about a lot more than good grades.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to scholarship applications and applying to big colleges than just send them your test scores and your grades and they'll decide whether you're in or not. I mean, you have to write about yourself, you have to write about what you're into, you have to be able to talk to people. And I think that, I don't know, it's a lot more in depth than I always thought it was.
It is kind of funny the well-roundedness, because it's like I got a scholarship and it's like, well, I was academic and I was also like an athlete. My college had very little academics or no athletics.
No athletics.
You just wanted me here? Like, why did you give me money for this? I can't play tennis here. It's a funny thing. It's important and I kind of get it, but it's weird that that's such an emphasis.
They just like to use you in some sort of like information they send out
Right.
about the college. Like, among our graduates is a championship tennis player.
State champion in high school. She also did pre-algebra.
She was very good at math for an artist.
Got an A in calculus.
She did microbiology. Who does that as an artist?
So, did that help you at all for
Yeah.
college?
I mean,
Be
I'm still intimidated.
well-rounded.
It's still scary, but I try. I think I am somewhat.
I think the more clear you can be about what you want out of college, and that doesn't necessarily mean what you want to be after college. I mean, if you have some vague idea, that's great. But if you kind of know, I'm going to get these experiences, I want to learn these things. I don't have this part figured out yet, but I have a path to figuring it out. I think that's the really meaningful part. That's
Yeah.
what interviewers in colleges tend to be looking for. You don't have to have every, like, I know where I'll be in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Like, you don't have to have answers to those
Right.
questions. Although they may ask you that.
Yeah.
Where
And
do
I
you
just
see
come up
yourself?
with something out of my butt. 'Cause
Right
who
out of your
knows?
butt.
I'm not going to let you do any of that. See, my legacy is at
Oh.
stake with this scholarship program. They're going to say, that's Sydney's sister, and she just pulled those answers out of her butt.
Literally.
So I'm going to coach you ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, or you could
It's not-
do my
if no one
path and
sees
don't
me
even
for-
worry.
if I go disappearing for 3 weeks before interviews several times throughout the next year, it's because Denise kidnapped me and won't let me leave the podcast closet until I can tell her all of my opinions on current events.
I'm going to challenge you. You're going to come home from school and you're going to open your closet door. I'm going to stand there and go, "Why are you wearing a skirt, feminist?"
Put on pants. Why do you feel like you have to wear pants?
Well,
What are you trying to prove?
and I mean, you know, as somebody that didn't get some crazy amazing scholarship, Riley, that you college is important for other things than just the learning you're going to do there. Like, you're going to be
Yeah.
on your own for the first time, hopefully. Like, you're going to the learning you do outside of the classroom is just as important to your future as everything else. So, you know, there's no wrong way to do it. It's an important proving ground.
Yeah. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. And you
Okay.
all will be with me on my journey through my senior year of high school into my first year of adulthood.
And the whole long application process.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do your community service, kids.
Play a
That's
sport.
the main advice. Play a sport.
Any
And by the time
sport.
this
And an
episode,
instrument.
yeah, by the time this
Hacky
episode goes
sack.
up, I'll be a week away from going back to school. So, like, that's sad.
Oh, is that so soon?
Yup.
No, don't dwell on that.
Well,
You know what the best thing about getting through college is you're done with school.
there you go.
Well,
Unless you're Sydney.
Not-
Unless you're
Not
Sydney
all
and then you
of
go
those
to
people
12
that do
years
other
of school.
things.
but that's okay. I love school.
Nerd.
Well, thank you, sisters. Thank you, Riley, for sharing these painful, trying times with us.
You're welcome, everyone.
Thank you, everybody who listens. If you like our show, you should check out all the other shows on the Maximum Fun Network by going to MaximumFun.org. Check out our family of podcasts. If you have any questions for us or comments or episode suggestions, specifically any questions for Riley, our teen spurt.
That's me.
Teen spurt?
Teen spurt?
spurt.
That sounds weird.
That, never mind. Forget that one.
Teen spurt.
Edit that out, Riley.
Teen
I
spurt.
don't like that.
Teen
No.
No teen spurts. If you have any questions for Riley, ask them in an email format, please. Still buffering at MaximumFun.org. And if you want to tweet at us, you can at stillbuff. Also, if you like our show, maybe take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes.
That'd be
Really
nice.
appreciate that as
Yeah.
well. And tell a friend.
Yeah.
I mean, not about the iTunes thing.
No.
Like, that's fine, but like tell a friend about,
About
our
our
show.
show.
What about anything? You know, talk to
National Bring a Friend to
Hey.
Podcast Day.
Just talk to your friends, but then also mention our show while you're doing
Yeah.
it, and then maybe listen to the show together.
But no
and,
pressure.
You know, create a bond of everlasting friendship.
Over teens.
And thank you to the Novellas for our theme song, "Baby You Changed Your Mind."
This
Quick
has
save,
been
that
Still
got weird.
Buffering. A sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
I guess I'm Taylor Smurl.
I am a teenager.
And I was.
I was
too.
too.
What just happened? Did we time travel? We're women. We can do that now.
Baby, you change your mind. You change your mind. Want to over and over again. 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 Over and over again.
A lot of times my instincts are wrong. They're mostly wrong, but they're not wrong in the sense that like I misread somebody. They're just extremely limited to my idea of who they are.
That was Mark Maron. I'm Jesse Thorne. I'm the host of NPR's Bullseye. I'm so excited to tell you about my new show, The Turnaround. Join me as I sit down with some of the best interviewers in the world to ask them about how and why they do what they do. We'll go deep with some of the biggest names in media, everybody from Terry Gross to Jerry Springer to Combat Jack. That's all on The Turnaround, 2 episodes a week this summer. Subscribe now. Tell a friend.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.